And it was very helpful to me in my sailing, in that, no matter who was on board, who the tactician was, or, any, professional, they would always, when it came down to a question, they would always say, Tom, what are they doing? Or can we charge it? Can we go into this mark with this, that sort of a thing? And I would be the person who would give them the answers. So I ended up, someone asked me to run an event, and I did it, and it went really well. And then suddenly I started into running events, and it eventually it turned into what it turned into, but I kind of morphed from sailing into running sailing events. And I found personally that it was just as gratifying to run a really good event as it was to run to sail a really good race for me. So I really enjoyed doing it, and I think that's what made me push to be better at it, just like in sailing. And I found that I got the same enjoyment out of it. So that's what pushed me to do more and more of it, I would say. But
I think it's very interesting, Tom, that you say that it is as rewarding to conduct a good race as sailing it. That's sort of the same I feel. You have a good feeling if you can conduct a good race for other sailors, and that's I think a feeling we need to push on to others. It's not a job it's possible to have fun while you do it, and that's very important.
Agreed. I think it's just as fun. It's just as the planning, the execution, the teamwork, the team building, which is extremely important to me, is getting good crew members, just the same as it was when I was racing sailboats. I would be looking for the best crew members, and not necessarily the most skilled crew members, but the crew members who would be the best team members, because you can teach people just about anything, I found, but you can't fix their personality if they don't get along well with people. That's hard to fix. And even if they're really, really good at whatever job it is they're doing, if they don't get along with everyone else, it doesn't work. So the whole thing to me is a team building exercise.
So what I hear, Tom, is that we don't have to be magicians. It will probably take us a long way if we apply your 3 principles. Can you tell us a little bit more about them?
I always think that communication is the key to all this. I make sure that, first of all, I try and let everyone know what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking it. I don't want to hold on to information. Some people like to hold on to information and keep it to themselves. I think they feel it makes them more powerful that way, if they're the only one who knows something. I believe that it makes me better at my job if other people are better at their jobs. So I want them to know what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking that, and why I made a decision that I made. And I may not be able to tell them right when it happens what I'm thinking. I may need to have something done and say, I need you to do this. But I'll make sure that afterwards I'll tell them, okay, these were the choices I felt I had, and this is why I made that choice, because I want them to learn. Then I always listen to what people are telling me. I want to know what they're telling me. I want their input. If they're doing a job and they've been doing a particular job for a long time, they know that job better than I do. I don't want to tell them what their job is. I want them to tell me how they do their job. I want them to give me input from their job, what they do. I want to know what they think. I want to know what everyone thinks, because there's always something in there that is helpful. If I think I know everything, it's not going to be good for me. I need to learn from other people, and I always feel that I should treat people the way I would like to be treated. If you're in a small company or a large company or a race management team, you know how you like to be treated by a superior, by your boss. You don't want to be ordered around, told what to do with no input, just go do this. You'll do it, but you won't feel good about it, and you won't contribute more than what you've been told to do, right? So I think that everyone in the race management team, everyone, the sailors, anyone on the site, the person who does the parking, who parks the cars at the lot, I mean, I treat everyone well. You just never know what they know that you might need to know, and the help that they could give you. Or, again, I always feel that I want everyone to walk away from an event feeling good about what they did, feeling good about what they contributed, feeling good about the job that everyone has done. And I mean everyone, right down to the person who makes the sandwiches for the kids, for the sailors, to the parking lot person, everybody. I want everyone to feel they're part of the team and they feel good about what they've done. I think those are all very important points to build on for me.
I very much agree with you on a guy on the parking lot. He is, for me, the most important guy because he can give you bonus points before I've even met you.
You never know. You never know. You might end up with the best parking spot that there is. You never know.
No. That's good. I want to touch a little different area. So you've been a pro at the Olympics, but I guess you have done more local races than Olympic races. So can you tell us a little bit about sort of the differences and the similarities between being the pro at the Olympics and being sort of the race officer at the local regatta?
I always tell like at the Olympics, there's super high pressure, right? I mean, and it gets more tense because of what's at stake for the sailors, right? So that's something that I really work hard to try and I'll say mitigate. I try and keep our team from getting so nervous about the event they're working on that they have trouble doing their job. They'll constantly hear me saying, when I can see the tension rising, like before we do a medal race or something like that, I say, guys, it's just a sailboat race. It's not life or death, hopefully. It's just a sailboat race. Don't get too wound up about it. That's what I find is in the Olympics or the Olympic type events is that there is pressure that you don't anticipate. That there's helicopters overhead making a lot of noise. There's people talking in your ear. There's lots of the television people, the umpires, everybody. There's lots of input, and they all have their point of view and what they want to see happen. And you have to kind of absorb all that and still continue to say, I'm just running a sailboat race. Everything is the same. I have a start line. I have boats. I have buoys. I cannot let this all get to me because sometimes people will kind of freeze because of the pressure. And that's what I find on the higher end that you have to be aware of as you go forward. Everyone feels they have something at stake, and the pressure really can come down on you. You have to be exacting in the higher level events. You have to be exacting. You'd be amazed at the amount of paperwork that comes to you with things that you never even thought of that become important at an event like that, that you have to pay attention to make sure that you're being fair to everyone. You know, things like walking the boat park. I like to walk the boat park all the time and talk to sailors and find out what they're thinking and why, how we're doing, you know. But you have to think about fairness things that come in a high stakes thing like the Olympics. I tell our race officers, you know, go ahead and walk the boat park, say hello to the sailors on that, but don't go by yourself. You know, if I'm an American, I don't want to be seen at the boat park talking for an extended period of time with American sailors, right? It doesn't look good, right? So I always say, if I'm an American, I'm going to take, you know, someone else from another country with me, and we're going to walk the boat park the same way, talking to people, having fun, you know, seeing how they like everything. But I'm going to make sure I have someone from another country with me, just to make sure that if I end up talking to Americans, people don't think that, hey, the principal race officer is spending a lot of time speaking to the American team, because it doesn't look good. So some of the things that I like to do at a you know, a more casual event, I find that I still do them, but I'm more careful about it. Like if I were running the neighborhood event, I am at my own yacht club, I'm talking to everybody all the time. How's it going? What do you need? How's the race course today? I talk to them out on the race course. I don't talk to them after we've started a race, but I talk to them at the start line. What do you think about the wind today? You know, how's it going with you? I mean, I talk to everybody all the time, but as the event gets more and more important, I guess, you just have to be careful about how you do it. That's what I have found.
I think it's interesting what you say about the sort of the pressure getting to the organization. Do you think that's one of the hurdles we have to overcome at the local level as well? Because I mean, pressure is felt from your experience. So if you're not an experienced, do you think pressure hinders people to participate on a sort of more local or national level as well? Is it the same mechanism that kicks in?
It probably is. I think that one of the things that I've found that I did a lot of, even though I started very late in life, as I said, I did a lot of sailing, and I kind of naturally now feel what decisions should be. I don't spend a lot of time in the rule book, because it just seems to make sense to me, because I've done enough of it. The more you do, the more naturally decisions will come to you, and the easier it will seem, the less pressure that will come. Sometimes someone will say something, we have this decision to make, and they're all worried about it, and I say, well, is it A or B? I go, well, that's B, you know, and they say, well, you didn't even look in the book. I said, I know it's B. That's what we want to do. And the more time you spend at it, the easier this thing becomes, and the less the pressure becomes. In sports, in our football, American football, you know, the other football, the quarterback is the person who throws the ball. He's got all the decisions to make, and they always say that the quarterbacks always say their first year in the league, when they come out of college into the professional league, that the game moves very, very fast and they have trouble keeping up. And then they say in the second year, the game seems to slow down. And the third year, the game seems even slower for them. Well, the game hasn't slowed down. They've sped up. They've made these decisions dozens of times, and it just builds on itself, and it makes it easier and easier to make decisions the more time you have in.
So more on the decision making then. I mean, we sailing is an outdoor sport, and we can't control the weather and the waves and the tides and the natural forces. But still, we have to make a lot of decisions fast. So can you tell us a little bit about sort of your personal decision making process when it comes to to the shifty conditions. I mean, lines that are not straight, abandoning races. Yeah, sort of all the things you have to make decisions fairly quickly while you're out there.
I think that the first thing you have to know about is you have to know your event. You have to know how high a level your event is. Say, I've spent a lot of time running laser races, and I run a laser race differently at my yacht club than I do at the World Cup or the Olympics. I don't at the local level. You know, I know who my customers are, my clientele, the sailors. I know what they're looking for from the day, and I try and give them what they're looking for from that day. I try and make my lines perfect. I try and make the course perfect. But as Henrik, as you just said, if it's shifty, that sort of thing, and it's not perfect, I don't worry about it so much in my local race, because I know the sailors just want to have a nice day. They want to go sailing. They'll be competitive enough. It'll be competitive, but they really want to get sailing. And I know that going in because I talk to the sailors. You know, I say, you know, if I go someplace, I say, how you guys doing? What is it that you're looking for today? What are you looking for in this event? And if it's a whole bunch of people who are just saying, like at my yacht club, you know, usually they just want to go sailing. If the line's off by 10 degrees, half of them won't know it anyway. And because they'll all start on starboard tack at the committee boat, no matter what. And so it's you kind of know that, and you say, well, the wind shifted a little bit, or maybe the current shifted the mark, or my boat shifted. Where if I were at the Olympic Games, I would stop, fix it. But I know that at my club, they just want to go sailing. And the key to doing that correctly for them is to find out. Like I said, I spend a fair amount of time just walking up and talking with people and figuring out their skill level, figuring out what they want from the day. And I think that's what you have to do. If you know your customers and you know the event, even like a class, as I said, the laser class, say, I would never tell you I run all laser races the same, because I don't, because there's local laser races and there's international laser races. So I really pay attention to what the event is and what the sailors expect from the race management. It's really important to know what the sailors expect from race management.
And that brings us on. You talked about the sailors. I guess you have. I think we have a couple of sailors, young sailors, with us, and probably some of them have Olympic aspirations. So any tips and tricks from a very experienced race officer to our young sailors? What should they worry about? What should they focus on?
I'm not a coach, so I don't want to go into that area, but I'll tell you what I see from a race management side. For young sailors, your reputation is very important. Your behavior is very important. If you know, you want to be as competitive as you can, obviously, but if you get a reputation for bending the rules, it will, or for misbehavior, if there's a protest, and you treat the jury with disdain, if you don't respect people, that reputation as a young sailor, that will follow you, and people have long memories, and it's not helpful to you. So you want to be as competitive as you can and do the best you can, but we're all dealing with people. Everything we do is people. This is all I always tell everyone. that no matter what we're doing, it's sales, S-A-L-E-S. You know, you're selling something, right? We're trying to work with people. And if you get a reputation for being an honor, you know, a hard sailing, honest, reputable sailor, it is helpful to you as you move forward. Doors will open for you that might not otherwise open for you. That I can tell you.
That's a good advice there. On the banding rules, Tom, we have sort of the other important team when we are racing is the judges and the jury. Anything you can share with us on the sort of communication between the race officers and the jury, judges, and so on?
Yes, I think that the race officer, or the race management team, and the jury team, although they're separate, and the higher level the event is, the more separate they need to be. The sailors, say at the Olympics, want to feel like if they think the race management made an error, they want to feel that they're going to get a fair hearing with the jury. So they don't want to see the jury and the race management team being too friendly. They want them to see them. You know, we don't want to be too separate, because we're all in the same team. The sailors, the race management, the judges, we're all trying to get the same event, the same, trying to get to the same place. But from a jury-wise, if the jury is seen as too, I'll use the word cozy with the race management team, sometimes the sailors feel that they won't get a fair decision if there's an issue with race management. I think that from a jury standpoint and from a race management standpoint, all of us officials have to develop a reputation as being fair. From a jury member's standpoint, if the jury makes an error, you know, a jury member makes an error, they have to be able to admit to it, right? From a race management standpoint, if we make a mistake on the race course that affects a sailor, I will file for redress for the sailor before the sailor even gets to the dock. Mm-hmm. You know, if I've screwed something up on an OCS call or something like that, the sailor will not have to file for redress on my line. I will file for them, because I want to make sure we've done the right thing. And it doesn't matter if I look good or I look bad. If I've made a mistake, I admit that I've made a mistake. The same thing that I just told you about sailors coming up applies to race management and jury members too. If you are viewed as someone who will cover up a mistake, or not act in the best interest of the sailor, that you will act in your own best interest instead, that will not help you in race management in the future. If you get a reputation with the sailors, and I think everyone knows someone like this, I know several, who, I mean, comes right to my mind. I know who I'm thinking of when I'm telling you this, who acts in their own self-interest instead of the sailors, and will not admit to an error, will not fix an error. You will get a reputation for that also. And the sailors, you know, quite often at an event, the organizing authority will talk to the sailors. Who would you like to have run this event, right? And the sailors, you say, I have Joe and John and Peter here that could run it. And the sailors will tell them, Joe and John are not acting in the behalf of the sailors. They're in it for themselves. They don't get invited. The third guy gets invited instead. So these are all really important things to me. The rule book is the rule book. Everyone can read a rule book. We can all learn the rules. To me, that's the easy part. The whole managing teams, working with the sailors, working with organizing authorities, working with juries, It's all people, and everyone has different personalities, and sometimes it's difficult to work with certain people, but you have to figure it out in order for the best outcome for the events.
Okay, I think we should start rounding this off, so we leave some time for questions as well. But I have one more for you, Tom. Going into the future, we will probably see new boat types. So all the foiling stuff is coming at us fast. Do you see anything that needs to be done differently from a race management perspective when we have boats going 4, 5, 6 times as fast as we're used to?
Yeah, sometimes our methods are not. We have to move more quickly. Obviously, we can't assume that we can do a mark change as quickly as we can do the mark change as quickly, but we don't have as much time sometimes as we thought. All of a sudden you say, oh my God, the boats are almost here, right? So I see being more careful with that. We have to, rather than let's say, if I had a different boat, a laser or something like that, I'd say if the weather mark was off by a couple of degrees, I might say, okay, let's go ahead and kind of micromanage this course and move that and fix it. If I'm running something on foils that are going super fast, I tend to be a little more conservative and say, look at what. If we don't get this mark change done quickly, we're in trouble. And if it's only off by a couple of degrees, I might let that go and just say that the course is good enough because we won't be able to do it quickly enough for them. There are also the safety aspects. There are safety aspects, obviously. These foiling boats, the foiling NACRAs, we had special safety teams on the race course for them in Tokyo, because someone can really get hurt on one of those boats because of the speeds, because of the foils are sharp, the rudders and sharp, to be really on top of watching what happens there. They're less stable when there is a capsize or something like that. It's not like a 470 just kind of leans over. It's a people get sent through the air sometimes and slam into the mast or something like that. So from a race management standpoint, to me, a lot more attention has to be paid to those aspects.
Very good, Tom. Very interesting to hear your perspectives on being a race officer. And obviously, you're very experienced. So I hope people listen to what you say, and that will possibly bring us forward, everyone. So with that, thank you very much, Tom. I think we have some questions, hopefully, from the audience. Do we, Eirik?
Yeah, Manuel had one here.
Yes, and if you have more questions, you can write them, and Eirik will pick them up, or you can just unmute and speak. Yeah. So the first question. It would be great to hear about types of organization and what is the minimum team one should secure before committing to an event.
Boy, this is actually a very, very good question, and it's a place where some events get themselves into trouble in the beginning, in the planning stages. To me, everything is. And I'm not a great planner. I kind of like to just do things, but I know that I have to plan, that if I don't, then I'm going to get myself into trouble. So in an organization, to me, when you decide to do an event, you need to sit down with what I'll call the players in the organization and usually a rep from the class, and talk about, what they expect, and then what you can do so that everyone's expectations are at the same level. Where we are, an example I use quite often is the optimist class. A lot of times they don't like to have a cutoff date for entries. They like to take entries right up to the very end, and that can be a safety issue. You don't as an organizer, you don't know how many boats to plan for. So how can I properly, put safety on the race course for them? So I look at, things that are, I look at number one, safety. Safety is number one for me all the time. So first thing is safety. And so creating an organization, can we have enough safety boats? Can we run the event in a safe enough place? What is our emergency plan? All those things that are all part of the organization. And if you don't plan it properly, you go out there without enough boats or without enough equipment, you're going to ask for trouble. And to me, it's just a matter, depending on the event. Some events need a lot of attention, some don't. But in knowing your event and sitting down with the people that can help you with input, when you begin the event, you sketch out what we need for this event, and then you get it. And if you can't get it, you shouldn't run the event.
Good. Another question here. Any thoughts of different formats in the future for racing events, or do we carry on in the same old fashion? So what do we do? What do we do to change our sport into a more compelling sport for the kids?
Yeah, boy, that's been going on. When I first started racing, we did triangle courses all the time. 45 degrees at the top, 90 degrees at the reach, and so we would spend a good portion of the race in a single file. So that turned into straight windward lewards, which we do a lot now. In theory, making sure that there are tactics on every leg. Then we took the triangles that we did have as 90-degree corners and turned them into equilateral triangles with 60 degrees on each corner. And then we said, well, that's that could even be a little faster for boats without spinnakers. So now, a lot of times on the trapezoids, it's a 70-degree corner, so they're closer to the wind. There's the in big boats in particular, there's a big push to do more than what we call sausages, instead of just up and down all the time. I find that it's really great to mix one of those races in once in a while, particularly in big boats. Sail to a destined, sail around an island, sail somewhere, do something that's a little different. In big boats, when you do that, you end up sometimes with an issue with the equipment suppliers. They say, well, we don't quite have the sails. This boat has only been set up to go upwind and downwind. When I had boats back in the day, in the last century, when I sailed my own boats, we had the ability to sail any point of sail, and we had blocks that we would put on and different sails that we would do, to go on a close reach or anything different. But most boats now are not set up for that. They've been optimized to go straight up and straight down. So, I think that the sailors enjoy doing something different, and I think particularly at more local events, I think an effort should be made to avoid the every single day sail upwind and downwind. When they get to the higher levels, there's going to be enough of that to make sure that the races are fair. But I think as far as kids are concerned, I think that we do way too much. Get in a plastic boat, go upwind, go downwind, go upwind, go downwind. I think as far as the kids are concerned, I think the more the variety, the better. give them fun races, give them different race courses, anything to keep their interest, because they'll lose interest and they won't come back.
So on that note, there's been the discussion in at least in Norway that we should avoid bringing the kids into the jury room, but we still need to have some sort of someone needs to take care of the rules. So what do you think about umpired fleet races when boats becomes in larger numbers, so 20, 30 boats? Do you think that will work to have umpired for fleet races to sort of avoid? So in football, the game is when the whistle blows, the game is over. Could we achieve something like that in sailing, or do we need a jury room still?
I have to admit to being a person who is in favor of self-policing sailing. I think that's one of the things that I like most about sailing, is that that you have to have some honor. If you've made a mistake, you're expected to put your hand up and say, I made a mistake, I'm going to do my turn, or whatever I'm going to do. The trouble with, and I was an international umpire until I ended up doing too much race management, didn't have time anymore. I really felt towards the end of my time as an international umpire that I didn't like the result as much, because everyone tried to get away with whatever they could get away with, and if the umpire didn't call it, it didn't happen. So I found that the rules, in my view, following the rules, it actually went down instead of up. If there was an umpire right behind someone, they would do everything they were supposed to do. But if the umpire moved to the other side of the fleet, they would do things that were illegal. And if the umpire didn't see it, it didn't happen. And I didn't really particularly like that aspect of umpiring. As you get to the higher levels, it becomes better to do umpiring. I think it's easier. You get the result rapidly, so that the sport's more interesting to people. They don't have to wait around. They don't have to watch a sailboat race and then wait for a hearing to find out what happened, who really won. But I see some local fleets where we are using, trying to go to fleet umpiring and for fleet races, and it's a whole new bureaucracy that's created. You can't just go out there and do umpiring without it. You have to have enough boats and enough umpires, and the umpires have to know what they're doing. So it becomes it's difficult to do. It's an overhead issue. It's, how do we get 5 more ribs, 6 more ribs on the race course? Where do we find 10 umpires who know what they're talking about? How do we get them here? Who's going to pay for that? So I think you have to be careful with it. I don't like the way it takes the sport if we do it all the time, and I don't like the way it makes events so expensive and difficult to run. At the higher levels, great. I mean, I've umpired fleet races at high levels with large one designs, IC-37s and Swans and big 40-footers, and for one reason, the sailors and the organizing authority wanted to have the result done at the end. The other reason is the owners who lent their boats to the event wanted to make sure that there was rules enforcement right then and there, and so that their boats didn't get damaged. So there's definitely reasons to do it, but I hate pushing it too far down into the sport, particularly with kids. I think they should learn that they're responsible for their own actions.
Very interesting, very interesting. Any more questions out there in the audience? Do my sidekick see any?
I can't find any, so but we're waiting for them.
But in the meantime, Tom, thank you very much for joining us. Interesting to hear your perspectives on being a race officer on sort of both the top level, but also on the local club level. And I very much like that your approach is not that different in the different locations. So
I think it's back in the olden days, the race management team or the race officer was kind of all powerful and told everyone what to do and when to do it. And, you know, if a sailor asked them a question on the race course, they'd respond with, read your sailing instructions, that sort of thing. I think those days are, I hope those days are over. I think that, you know, for me on a race, on a committee boat, when the sailors come by before the race, I want to talk to them. I want to see what they think. How you doing? You know, I'll ask people on a shifty day, you know, what they see the wind direction as, what they saw the trends as. On big boats, when I'm racing big boats, you know, they've got instruments. I've got a stick and a compass that I stick into the air, right? What have I got? They've got, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment on the boats, and they've just sailed a beat up wind, and they come back down to me, and as they go by me, I say, what did you guys get for an average wind on that beat? I'd like to talk to people like that. I'd like to, I like when they feel comfortable talking to me about that. Coaches, here's another thing, coaches can be a pain in the neck, right? But good coaches are really helpful. I talk to coaches all the time. What do you think? What do you guys see today? You know, I'll talk to them on the way out to, you know, in the boat park. I'll look at their weather report. What do you have for a weather report? You know, what do you guys think is going to happen today? And it's helpful because coaches are one of your biggest assets on the race course, on a big, you know, course with dinghies. You need them for safety boats. You really need them because you can't possibly, in most cases, supply enough safety boats. So you need them. So you need to kind of take care of them too, right? I see some race officers, race managers who treat coaches badly, and I think that's very short-sighted. Sometimes you get one bad coach who knows it all, blah, 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 blah. You're like, yeah. You know, I've got a couple of those. I've got a couple of guys. A couple of guys that I see on the, you know, on the circuit, if you will, the Olympic group. And there's one race, there was one coach in particular. People look at me and they say, all you guys do is fight, you know, out on the race course. You know, he'll come to me and say something, and I'll go, we go back and forth. But we're each giving each other information. At the end of the day, we're still friends. And talking to him is very helpful. So so I think, you know, when it comes to coaches, it's really important to make sure that you're working with them, talking with them. All that, sailors the same way. I want people to feel comfortable coming up to me because I can't possibly see everything. Every once in a while, I'll have a coach come up to me and say, did you know that, who knows what thing is about to happen? Because he's the local, he or she is the local person. I go, no, what do you think is going to happen? You know, it's important that they feel comfortable telling me that. They don't tell me what to do, but they tell me what they know so I can help decide what to do. And if they feel comfortable talking to me, I get more information that way. If they think I'm not going to talk to them, or I'm just going to, you know, don't talk to me, I'm the boss, I don't get the good information from them. So I think it's all part of, you know, the communication things that I talk about over and over, I know, but I think it's all part of it.
That was actually the next question, Tom. That was sort of how you treat and how you communicate with the coaches.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to decision making and how you bring them into the process. So I think we sort of you touched that fine with your last comment. So.
Okay, great.
But then we have.
I found that with coaches, the younger they are, the more impulsive they are, and the more they, you know, want to tell you something, because they're trying to maybe prove themselves or whatever, you know. And I've had coaches that I had a coach one time at it was a oh boy, it was an Olympic test event. I got ashore, and the coach came up to me and told me I was the worst race manager he had ever seen. And, and I didn't quite know how to respond to that. You know, I said, you are the worst race manager I have ever seen. And I said, well, why? Why do you think that? And I have a temper too. You know, I can get angry, and I really try not to. But what I wanted to do was tell him to get lost, right? And I said, well, come here, let's sit down. Tell me why you think I'm a horrible race manager. And he brought up like 3 instances that when I explained what I was thinking and why I did what I did, he didn't necessarily agree with what I did, but then he understood why I did it. And by the time we got through talking, now when I see him anywhere on the circuit, we're best friends. You know, hey, how you doing? He'll pull up beside the committee boat and he'll give me some information about the day that I might not have known. You know, so it's really the first thing you have to do with people who are pushing you is to first to listen to them so they can get it out of their system. Right? If you say, I don't want to listen to you, get lost, that doesn't do anybody any good, because the person who's approaching you, whether it's a coach or a sailor, is still going to be unhappy. Oops, there goes my phone. Is still going to be unhappy with you afterwards, and you've accomplished nothing. Right? So the first rule for me is to listen to what they have to say. And I don't try and fight them point by point. I listen to them and say, okay, I understand what you're saying. Let me tell you what I was thinking. I almost never try and say, I'm right and you're wrong. I try and say, this is what I was thinking, which led me to this decision, so they can understand the process, not just, you know, to get there and say, I'm right and you're wrong, I'm smart and you're stupid. It gets you nowhere. You can win the argument, but then that coach or that sailor is still angry with you, and it's going to pop up another time, another place. They're going to come after you again because they don't think you're listening to them and not appreciating their knowledge, because some of these people are really smart. We were doing, well, in the Rio Olympics, I was running lasers, and we had gone offshore south of the bay, and we got stuck in this funny wind thing where I started a race in like maybe 270 degrees of light air, and I abandoned it within like 5 minutes because the current was such that half the fleet was going forward and the other half of the fleet was kind of going backwards, you know. So I just killed the race right away, and we were under this funny cloud line that wouldn't move. So to my right was no air, and it looked like to the left there might be some air, but we were in our assigned spot. So I'm trying to think of what to do, and 2 of the coaches drove by, and I waved them over. And I knew that they had been in Rio for like 6 months training with their guys. I said, what do you think is going to happen here? They said, see this cloud line? It's not going to move. If you go south of here about 2 miles, we're going to find a beautiful 240 degree, probably 10 knots of breeze. You know, we've been, you know, blah, blah, blah. I said, all right, let's do it. Let's pick it up and let's head south. And we headed south past where I was allowed to go, actually, past the security zone. And we set up a beautiful day of racing in 240 degrees and 12 knots, and the sun was out. I didn't know enough about the area. I didn't know where I was going to find the good breeze, but the coaches told me where to find it. So I really like to facilitate that sort of a relationship.
Interesting, very interesting. I think we have a question from Thomas Reistad. Thomas, please.
Thomas Reistad speaking, Brevik Seiforening.
Hi, Thomas.
You were talking, Tom, about the guy at the parking lot. And I have a small anecdote about that. Some 15 years ago, we had a member sailing, his daughter sailing dinghies in our club. And we arranged a Norwegian championship. And this guy was called Odd Reidar Humlegård. And I think most Norwegians know who he is. And he was the guy at the parking lot. and he had 2 colleagues assisting him at the parking lot, and I was responsible for the canteen. And people came down after parking saying to me, "You have to tell this guy at the parking lot that he is brilliant. It's the best management of a parking lot we have ever seen." And at that point of time, Odd Reidar Humlegård was the National Police Commissaire of Norway. Currently, he is our National Police Interpol Liaisons Officer, and his 2 colleagues were the head of the traffic department, assistant traffic department of the local police. So lesson learned, respect people's knowledge. Listen, as you said. You never know. The guy who is acting really knowledgeable at the parking lot might be the National Police Commissioner.
I've always felt that when I watch people, if you know people as well as I do that talk, if they think someone is somehow beneath them, they talk down to them. And then if they perceive someone as being, up, maybe above them, or if they talk nicely to them, I've always found that the person I want to be with is the person who treats everyone well. And as you just said, Thomas, you just don't know who they're going to be. In sailing, we tend to have, think of the volunteers we have. We have, doctors, nurses, engineers. We usually have people who can afford to take a day off to help. Usually they're pretty highly skilled people, and you just don't know. You meet the person who's going to put up the flags for you, and as you say, you find out he's the National Police Commissioner or something, right? And it's so interesting. These people are so interesting, and that's one of the reasons why I really believe you can't. Most people volunteer. So if you have someone who's, at my yacht club, we happen to be right near a hospital on Cape Cod. We have lots of doctors and nurses in our yacht club. And if you don't treat them well, why would they come back? They're not getting paid. They're getting a T-shirt, right? You're going to give them a T-shirt that says that of the event, or you're going to give them, a wet sandwich for lunch. There's nothing in it unless they feel that that they're accomplishing something, that they've done. Everyone has worked together as a team to accomplish something. Why would they come back? So
that's also why I think one of the killers is when people use sort of micromanagement techniques. Lift left foot, lift right foot, because most of these people, as you say, they are already motivated. The only thing you can do is to demotivate them. And they are in their day-to-day situation, most of them, solving problems all the time, taking decisions. So management for volunteers with high competence in other fields is a totally different management than being head of the local workshop with 15 mechanics below you.
Agreed. And when you treat, to me, I was doing a talk a while back, and a woman who works with me quite often now, she's a national race officer in the U.S. I hope she becomes an international shortly. I met her like 12 years ago at another place in the country, and she was, I can't remember what her job was at that yacht club, but I said something to her that we had a lot of weather coming through, and I asked her what she thought that this thunderstorm was going to do, whether it was going to go left or right, or what it might do. And she hesitated for a minute and then gave me her opinion. She was correct, and all forgotten by me. Well, 12 years later, she's working with me on a talk, and she brings it up. As she said that when I first met you, you asked me what I thought about the weather. And she said, that made me so happy that you would consider my opinion. And she never forgot it. And you sit there and you say, someone remembered something I said. You know, I don't say anything that's particularly brilliant, but she remembered that, and now she's a real unbelievable race officer who, as I said, I hope becomes an international race officer soon, and she's never forgotten it. So so I think it's important to be able to, to help people feel better about what they're doing, and to make sure that they've gotten that impression that, boy, I want to come back. If they say, we're going to do such and such event, and we've asked Tom to come back and do it, they say, yeah, we want to work with Tom because he treats us well. We were just at the last Olympics, and when we got through, the team spoke to me and said, and several of them had done several Olympic games, and they said, you know what, this is the best that we've done. Not because, Tom, you're really smart or anything, because they said, Tom, you let us do what we do. You let us do what we do. You organized us. You gave us the parameters, but you did not, someone just used the word micromanage. You did not micromanage us. And you let us do what we do. So we, even these top level international race officers said this is the best we felt at an Olympics. And I said, well, that's really great, because that's what I should be doing. So again, they didn't say that I was really smart or anything. They just said you left us alone and let us do what we do. So so I think it's important.
I think you mentioned that, final comment from my side. You mentioned that you are not as critical to the layout of the game, so to speak, when it's kid in optimist thingies as when it's an Olympic laser game. Because having had a kid going through all the dinges for the last 15 years, I wonder how many hours we have spent trying to make the 10, 11, 13-year-old children not wanting to go home, while somebody is polishing the course, being 90 degrees, not 91, not 89, but really polishing and spending hours moving buoys for 13-year-old children. That
right.
I really love that you mentioned, that you adapt to your audience. That is so important.
Exactly. Know who your clientele is.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we need to stop, because we have a little bit more we need to cover. But it's a good sign that we agreed on half an hour, Tom. I know we have spent 1 hour 15 minutes. So
Okay.
I think the audience found this listening to you interesting. And thank you very much again for joining us.
Well, it's great. Well, thank you very much. I apologize for doing it from my car on my cell phone, but like I said, we had a big storm today, and we've lost all our power at home and all that, lost our internet. So I drove until I found a spot I could get power, so I could get signal. So here I am.
That's a good race officer, adapting to the situation.
Exactly.
Good example.
Well, thank you very much. It was fun. Thank you so much.
I hope you will treat the Norwegian sailors well.
Thank you.
Okay.